Hey everybody, I'm Susan Pearce with the Melissa Taylor team. And we have, of course, our fearless leader, Melissa Taylor. Hi, Melissa.
Hey.
And we have Emily Hulshof, our team member too, realtor. And we have Rob Townsley, who is with Orienna Financial. Hi, Rob.
How's it going?
Great, and thanks for coming tonight. So we're just doing, on this particular segment, we're going to do steps to building wealth, because I mean, my gosh, people a lot of times don't realize the power they have just in owning real estate and owning their own home. So Rob is going to take it away and explain to us how to build wealth through real estate. So go for it, Rob. Let's hear what you have to say.
Perfect. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go run through one example, and this is the typical home buyer that we see out there, typical, first-time home buyer, whatever you want to call it. But it's somebody that owns a house, and let's face it, we go through different stages in life, and what we do is we buy our first home, that's our starter home, and then we get into a second home and sell that one. And and I'm going to go through that example right now with you guys just to show how that would typically work. And this is the typical real estate transaction that most real estate agents go through. And then I'm going to show you another way to do it that's better, that might offer a little bit more value, how you can get a mortgage faster, how you can build wealth. Okay, and we're going to look at a typical home that's worth about $600,000 today. You've got a $300,000 mortgage, and you've got about $300,000 in equity. Okay, so try to remember these numbers for the next couple of slides because they're going to keep coming up a little bit. And typically, what happens is customer comes in, they go to the real estate agent and says, hey, I want to sell my house. It's, we think it's worth $600,000 and I want to buy a home for $800,000. So they're moving up, right? Maybe have some kids now, bigger family. So they want to advance in that family. So what do most people do is they take the equity from that sale, that $300,000, and they put it on as a down payment. Okay. And now you have a $500,000 mortgage, $300,000 equity, which is the equity that you put down. Okay. So you can see where that came from. So I'm just going to screen this up a little bit. All right, so let's take a look at 10 years down the road and what kind of situation that family would be in. So now that $800,000 home would be worth $1.3 million. Okay, mortgage would be $345,000, not so bad. $955,000 in equity, and this is how most people.
Slide. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a new slide there? I don't think we're seeing it.
Yeah, he's just changing the numbers on the same slide.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just going through it. We haven't switched slides yet, so I'm just showing.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see that there.
That's okay. So now that family's built up equity of $955, and this is typically how most families go through life. This is how they do it. They buy the one home, they move up in value, buy something a little bit more pricier, and then they get to retirement and they've got this house that's worth $1.3 million. They sell it off, maybe downsize down the road. So we want to show another way to doing this, just to give you a good example. So remember that $955 equity from the first page. This was from the first example of what most families do. And we're going to show you the alternative. Mortgage was at $345. Okay. And we're going to take that equity now from that sale. So remember that $600,000 home they sold, they had $300,000 in equity. So how can we split it up and do it different? Okay. So instead of using the full $300 for the down payment now, we're going to use $200. Okay. We're going to buy that home. And you have that home for $800,000. So instead of now a $500,000 mortgage, you now have a $600,000 mortgage, $200,000 in equity. And I know we're talking about putting people in more debt, but there's a reason why we do this. And once we get a little bit more in the program, you certainly would understand why. And let's take a look over 10 years. So house is still going to be worth $1.3 million in value. Mortgage is now going to be $412. So it's a little bit higher than it was before. Okay. And you have $888,000 in equity. So remember before we had $955. Well, now you only have $888 because you've got a bigger mortgage amount. But what are we going to do with the other $100,000? And let's take a look at that. So one of the things we show people is to go after a rental property or an investment property that they can put their money into to build more equity. And obviously a rental property is where we try to push a little bit more because you have the renter who's going to be paying for the mortgage. So get an idea. That $100,000, you can buy a $500,000 rental. You'd have a $400,000 mortgage. So now you've got $1 million in mortgages, by the way. and you're going to do that with that 100,000 in equity. But let's see what happens in 10 years. So that $500,000 rental property is now going to be worth 815. Okay. Mortgage will be down to 275. And just keep in mind, you know, that's somebody else paying off your mortgage. That's not money coming out of your pocket. That's putting a renter in there paying that mortgage down. And you're going to have the equity of 540K. Okay. So here's the big difference when we look at this. Your total equity now is 1.4 million compared to 955. You took the same money that you had 10 years ago, did it into 2 properties, and you end up making an extra $500,000 more in that equity. Okay. So if you take a look at it, you know, what kind of makes a little bit more sense. And the whole idea of this is trying to show people how to build wealth through the real estate instead of just going through that normal path, you know, that the banks have taught us, our parents have taught us. You know, there's a lot of other ways that we can strategically do this to put yourself further ahead. And you can also look at it this way. You could turn around and you could sell that second property. You know, it's worth 815. You've got a mortgage of 275, but you'll have 540 in equity. You could take that 540 in equity and pay off your first home and be mortgage free in 10 years. Right? So it is a great strategy moving forward. Any questions?
That's great.
I
Awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It makes so much sense. And every time I see it, it makes even more sense. And I think the same for the people in our wealth building groups, right? I love it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I do it?
It's a great way. Like I said, worst case scenario, you have no mortgage in 10 years. You sell one off, you have no mortgage. You know, if you're not into, you know, wanting to be the landlord for life or getting 10 properties, like we do talk and show people how to do, but this is a great way. Like I said, who doesn't want to be mortgage free in 10 years? Most people are, you know, trying to do it in 25, right? It's a struggle, but this is a good, quick, easy way to do it. It's a 10-year plan, right?
Yeah.
After you get out of there.
Makes
great.
sense.
Oh, it's awesome. There's other options out there. I think a lot of people don't realize that until they see it laid out for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a lot of people, they just think of the equity. I want a small mortgage. I want this. And it's the mentality thinking, unfortunately, the banks have put into us, you know, pay down your mortgage, get rid of your debt. But we've always heard before, there's good debt and there's bad debt. So mortgage is not a bad debt, right? It's how you utilize your money, and you want your money to work for you. So, you know, there's that old saying, right? Do you want to keep, you know, you're going to work for your money, or you want your money to work for you? I prefer to have my money work for me, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really love that.
Awesome.
Just remind people, Rob, because I think it really matters when, and one of the things we always say is you know, listen to a professional, listen to someone who knows what they're talking about. Tell us, do you own any rental properties?
Yeah, so I have 7 right now, right? So that's my retirement plan. It's really that. I do have RSPs and everything too. I know we talked about it before, but yeah, like, you know, looking at being a financial planner over the last, you know, almost 25 years now, you know, seeing where the growth is, where the market is. There's one thing, you know, this might sound kind of sad, and I'll say it this way, but if you're a financial planner and you sell mutual funds, the only investment out there that's good for everybody is a mutual fund, right? If you're a real estate agent, the only good investment out there is real estate, and so forth. If you're an insurance agent, you're going to sell insurance policies. So the one thing I've had the advantage of is, you know, I'm a financial advisor, I do insurance, and I also do, you know, mortgages for real estate. So I've had, you know, the luxury of actually sitting back and looking at all 3 different types of investments and say, okay, you know what, this one here seems to work and return the most. And, you know, hopefully in another seminar, we'll show the returns that are potential, you know, to be made in the wealth program. You know, there's different ways, and there's 3 ways to make money on real estate, whereas there's only one way to make money on, you know, investments, right? So it's, you know, having that perspective and being able to look back and say, okay, you know what, I can choose which one the best one is because I've seen all of them, and kind of take it from there. Yeah.
And when did you buy your first one? Let's tell them that, because
it's only 10 years ago.
Like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is something that is attainable for absolutely everybody, you know, who is listening. And we come across many people, you know, just listening to you now, like this really brings up sort of inheritance, right? You know, when people they end up with the house as the estate. Mm-hmm. Boy, oh boy. And I know everybody just wants their cut, but imagine if people had open minds and could utilize that money and spread it out into building wealth as opposed to just filling your own bucket.
you
A
know,
lot of applications.
statistics out there are, you know, was it 90% of millionaires in the world are all made through real estate, right? So the other 10% did it elsewise, but 90% of all millionaires are done through real estate. So it just goes to show you that, you know, some people have figured it out. There is other ways to do it. And, you know, when I go back to, like I said, I bought my first property in 2008 and then another and so forth. And now I'm at a point where I try to buy 1 to 2 a year, just to keep increasing the portfolio. But, you know, that's me, right? Like I understand risk too, but for someone to get in as a first time to do this, you know, get their feet wet, get a little bit more comfortable. It's not as bad as a lot of people think. I use property management companies too. Like it's, you know, I don't want the headache, right? So it's all there. But it's a great way to build wealth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
That's so informative. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this one, Rob. I mean, it's a lot of numbers and it's a new way of thinking, right? So, but that's why we're doing these. So this is one of the first of many. And so thank you. And everybody, we'll see you next time for the next one. Make sure you tune in.
You
Perfect.
betcha.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rob.
Bye.
Bye.